I've got 3 complimentary plays here for this Saturday video report in college basketball going at 8 o'clock Eastern Time out in the Pac-12. It's Oregon State at Arizona State in the XFL. Yes, it's football, folks. Week 3 of the inaugural new season of the reincarnated league. I've got the game between Dallas and Seattle. And quick, give me the nicknames of both of those teams. Yeah, I know 99% of you can't give me one of them, let alone both of them, but we'll get to that Jeopardy question in just a moment. But what I'm most intrigued about talking in this video report about is going to be the Wilder Fury fight. Now, for those of you that are newcomers, you know I started my career before I turned to the dark side and got into this gambling business. I was actually a sports reporter and managing editor of a sports wire service for nearly 8.5, 9 years, and I covered the boxing beat exclusively for about 7 years during that span. And listen, boxing has always been, next to baseball, my favorite sport. Very first boxing bout that my father took me to was Duran Leonard, the very first one as a little kid. So, I mean, kind of a good one to break into, you know. But during the 80s and 90s, there wasn't a major bout that I didn't get the pleasure of covering. And we can talk about that another day. But let's talk about this particular fight. You know, the first fight was just incredible. I mean, I happened to watch it again the other night. But then again, it was incredible because we are so starved for good heavyweight fights at this particular juncture. And, you know, of course, it was a split decision. And it was a fight where Fury used his boxing skills to remain elusive for most of the bout until Wilder caught him in the 9th round and nearly knocked him out in the 12th round. And you have an interesting dynamic going here tonight because Fury, of course, packed on 17 extra pounds and weighed in, I think, at 273 for this fight, the heaviest of his career. And he said, you know, that he's been carrying this weight for 2 to 3 months, so the extra weight that he's carrying, he says it's not going to affect him. The interesting thing about weight, you know, simple physics, you know, force equals mass times acceleration. It does not apply, however, to boxing. Just because you put on extra weight, it doesn't mean it adds extra power to your punch. You see that as boxers put on extra pounds and they go up in weight categories and classes, their punch often doesn't go with them. Not even often, I would say 75 to 80% of the time. When they go up, their punching power goes down. I think that Fury put on the extra pounds here in this particular rematch coming into it because the body blows that he absorbed in the first go-round really took their toll and sapped him of his of stamina and his strength in the latter rounds of the fight. And that's why Wilder's punching power got to him and eventually the KO punches nearly took him out. So I don't think it was an offensive tactic, although he did change trainers. And I think that he, in his mind, feels that the extra weight will allow him to absorb more punishment and be able to trade more blows in this fight with Wilder, who, of course, has the greater punching power anyway. However, I think that's a big mistake because listen, Fury, if he's a smart guy, is going to stay to the outside, avoid mixing it up, and rack up the points. And that's the way he can take the decision. The problem is, I think, as you saw in the first go-round, that Fury has somewhat of a glass chin. Not a typical glass chin that you would say, but he has definitely a vulnerability, and Wilder capitalized on it. I also think that, as you saw in Fury's last fight, where he needed 47 stitches to take the cut around his eye, that he has a bleeding problem. And boxers and their cut men and their trainers will always say, hey, it was just a one-time thing. It's not a one-time thing. It's not. Once you have a wound that opens up, you can do the greatest stitch job by the greatest surgeons and have the best plastic surgery. That skin, that area is always going to be prone to being opened up again because it's thin. It's skin on bone. It's been tied back together. It's always going to be prone to being opened up again, especially when you're going up against a guy with devastating punching power like Wilder. What surprises me most about this fight is that Wilder is only a 135 favorite in this fight. Forget about having to worry about, is this fight going to go the distance? Is this fight going to go over or under 10.5 rounds? The way I look at it here is you're just betting Wilder straight up on the money line minus $1.35. If I came to you and told you to bet the Washington Nationals minus $1.35 on the run line with Steven Strasburg in the middle of July, you'd go, oh, that's a pretty damn good bet, right? It's the same thing here tonight, and you're not even laying the 1.5 runs. So that's how way I'm playing this fight here tonight. If I had to rate this play, I would say it would be a 10-dime play. Okay, 15-dime play is my normal top-rated selection. Tonight I have a raised dime, 20-dime release, number, 11 out of 13 in college basketball here over the past month and a half. It's a damn strong play, a 10-dime release. That's how I like Wilder tonight in this fight because, again, the extra pounds is not going to increase Fury's punching power. And I think that ultimately the extra pounds is actually going to sap him of his energy and take away from the elusiveness that he's going to need to stay away from Wilder, because we know Wilder is only going to do one thing: attack, attack, attack. And ultimately, one of those punches is going to catch him, meaning Fury. And Fury is not going to do any damage to Wilder in this fight because nobody else has during his career. Am I right? And there you go. So the bigger man is not going to win this fight here tonight. Extra pounds doesn't mean the key to success in boxing. Okay, in terms of college basketball tonight, I'm going to go with Arizona State, minus the 6 points at home against Oregon State. An Oregon State team that's coming off a 89-63 loss to Arizona on Thursday in Tucson, a game in which they shot only 41.5% and committed 21 turnovers. They also lost their prior game at home by a wide margin, 69-47 to Colorado. They're 2-5 on the Pac-12 highway. Meanwhile, you've got an Oregon State team that enters this game last in the Pac-12 in terms of three-point shooting, last in terms of rebounding. What does that tell me? This is a team that is going to end up trading twos for threes. This is a team that's going to miss out on second chance opportunities. And when you're looking at a narrow margin, that favors the other team, that being Arizona State. An Arizona State team that's coming off a 77-72 home win over number 14 Oregon on Thursday. They've now won 6 in a row, the Sun Devils, 8 of the last 9. This is their first 6-game winning streak in conference play since 1981. Bobby Hurley has really turned this team around after a 1-3 start in Pac-12 play. Now they're on the verge of making their third straight Big Dance invitation since the 60s, I think it is. They really shot well against Oregon the other night, 48.3%. They're playing well. This is a team, they've won 5 straight at home in conference play since losing their Pac-12 opener at home to Colorado. They're 11-2 overall at home. I'm going to go with Arizona State and lay the points. And now, let's get to the game you're all waiting for. Ladies and gentlemen, the XFL play today is going to be the Dallas Renegades, minus the 4 points against, the Seattle Dragons. Listen, Dallas last week got Landry Jones back, and he played well. Jones, the offense really got going. Yes, he had 2 interceptions, but he also went 28 for 40 for 305 yards and 1 touchdown. And the offense, which had 267 total yards and a loss in week number 1 to St. Louis, had 444 total yards in the win last week. And it wasn't just Jones. Cameron Artis-Payne, their one running back, 14 carries, 99 yards, 2 touchdowns. Lance Dunbar, who I think had a cup of coffee with the Dallas Cowboys in the NFL, averaged 7 yards a carry as well. Meanwhile, the Seattle Dragons had a 17-9 win over Tampa Bay. But listen, Tampa Bay's awful. Tampa Bay has scored 19 points in 2 games. Tampa Bay has played 3 quarterbacks. They're 0 for 7 in the red zone so far this season. Their lone touchdown on the year came on a pick 6. That's how bad this Tampa Bay team. So Seattle winning that game means absolutely nothing. And Seattle's quarterback, Brandon Silvers, was 7 for 18 for 91 yards, and 68 of those 91 yards came on a busted coverage play. Seattle has 3 turnovers in week number 1, had a punt block. Last week they did nothing against Tampa Bay. That's why I'm willing to lay the 4 points with Dallas on the road in this one. And listen, I'm going to go ahead and buy down the half point. If this line's anywhere between 3 and 4.5, like I always do, just because it's a rookie a minor league, it doesn't make any difference. It's the same rules applied as the NFL and college football. So again, I like Wilder minus $1.35. I like Arizona State minus the 6, and I'm going to buy down the half point with the Dallas Renegades minus the 4 in the XFL. Good luck, everybody.